Good evening and welcome to this short sharing at Scala News, where we have gathered in the studio. And today we have important guests, Bishop Bryan from Bishop Toronto, Eastern Canada, and also Bishop Mychola Bychok. And today we are very happy to have you all amidst us. And it was a wonderful moment that apart from your synod being with Pope, and you are here with us, and it is a wonderful time and most welcome to both of you. First of all, I would like to ask Bishop Bryan to introduce yourselves.
Okay. I grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I actually went to an elementary school named after Redemptorist, Bishop Murray. Then I went to a high school, a minor seminary for the Redemptorists. And so all of my education has been in a Redemptorist institution, all along the way. I was in the major seminary in 1979 in Toronto. I did my novitiate in Wisconsin, in Conomowoc, Wisconsin, in 82, 83. Was ordained a deacon, took final vows and was ordained a priest in 87. And then was in many places, actually, true to our Redemptorist form. In my first 13 years as a priest, I was moved 10 times. But I've had the blessing to be in our seminaries, to teach, and then to serve in various ministries, particularly with youth. And in 2007, I wanted to go to World Youth Day, which was going to be in Australia in 2008. And lo and behold, that is when I was receiving the appointment from the Holy Father. And so that was my first World Youth Day as a bishop, as a Redemptorist bishop, which you can say a little bit more because it was in Sydney, in Australia, 2008. Anyway, I was there in Saskatoon for 12, 13 years. At the time, the Holy Father then also added to my list of responsibilities. I became the administrator for the Eparchy of Toronto in Eastern Canada. And so I was sort of sharing my time in both locations. And then finally, a year ago in June of 22, I was installed just as Bishop Eparch for Toronto in Eastern Canada, and Saskatoon was taken over as administrator by Metropolitan Huitziloch. So in that time, I've had many wonderful experiences, particularly with sharing, and preaching about our Mother of Perpetual Help, Our Lady of Guadalupe, as well, and maybe that's where I'll pass it on to Bishop Bychok.
Since you began with the introduction, how do you see overall synodal meetings that you have with Pope Francis and the bishops gathered?
Well, I think it's significant to always make it to Rome, of course, and have the opportunity to visit with the Holy Father. I have been impressed by him in many ways. I was there on behalf of our synod in 2018 for the youth synod on faith and vocations.
Yeah.
And there's many different things that we heard and concluded. But one of my personal takeaways was his approachability, his ability to be present. I was thinking, how do I deliver these gifts that I have on behalf of teachers and young adults and everything in the Saskatchewan province where I am? And all I had to do is come half an hour early. He had a receiving line every day.
Oh, yes.
Every day, just come early, line up, and he would greet you and hear what you had to say. Very, very available. That has impacted me in my ministry.
Over to you, Bishop Mychola Bychok. Could you introduce and could you say something more about yourself, your ministry?
Okay, I am Bishop Mychola Bychok, responsible for Ukrainian Catholics in Australia, New Zealand and Oceania. So I grew up in Ukraine, my native city, Ternopil, western part of Ukraine. So majority of my time I was there, I grew up. I got my vocation thanks to Redemptorists, because especially during my vacations, free time, so I spent a lot of time with them, visiting not only our conference, but also taking part in some missions, retreats. Thanks to them, I got my vocation, especially from my spiritual father, who was Michaela who is dead right now. But I got this vocation, and during my priestly ministry, so I was in different locations. First of all, from 2005 until 2007, I was a Redemptorist priest in Siberia, in Russia, ministering for our people who were displaced in early 1950s. So right now we see this war, and 70 years ago a lot of our people experienced it the same. Then I returned to Ukraine, so I ministered in other locations in Ukraine. Then also I was in the city of Newark, New Jersey, in USA, because we have also our church, our house as Redemptorists. And then at the beginning of 2020, I got a phone call from His Beatitude Patriarch Sviatoslav, who announced not good news for me. For me it was bad news, but it was good news for him, that I was chosen to be a bishop in Australia, New Zealand and Oceania, to change my predecessor, Bishop Peter Stasiuk, who was also a Redemptorist from Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as we are aware that the Synod of the Bishops of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church is taking place in Rome from September 3 to 13. And just 1 month ahead of an assembly, that of the Synod of Bishops of the Latin Catholic Church. And on Wednesday, I remember on 6th September, there was an important meeting between the Pope and about 45 bishops that lasted nearly 2 hours of the Pope Hall of Paul the Sixth, no?
Yes.
And I believe the encounter was part of the annual Synod of Bishops of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. And so therefore, what Bishop Mychola, what are the main points of discussions you see with Pope regarding the war between Ukraine and Russia?
So you see, we're experiencing this war more than 1.5 years, and we hear about what is happening in Ukraine, but as you see, also very important mass media to say truth, what is happening in Ukraine and also what is happening in Russia. So it was, I think, the main point, because yes, we as Synod of Bishops of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, first of all, we thank to Pope for all his good deeds which were done for Ukraine, also all his statements, which were 226 all statements during this time of the war. But also we noticed that few times it was not good statements about Ukraine and also about Russia. So it was the main point, because actually like 1 or 2 weeks before, Pope had some statements, and actually it was meeting with youth in Russia during online in St. Petersburg, and he put it some like examples for youth, which from our perspective was wrong, it was not good examples to follow. So we were true with Pope, and I think Pope understood us.
Okay. And we know Ukraine is badly hit over these period of war, and many people have fled, migrated. Especially also, we have priests in Ireland and other places. People are under shelter. So, just to focusing on the people of Ukraine, how do you see their situation, and with regard to the faith and the life, and how they continue in spite of all this war continuing?
So the main topic of our synod is how to heal wounds of the war. So right now we have a lot of wounded people, not only in Ukraine but around the world. For example, I'm in Australia, and I see not only Ukrainians but also other people, Australians, Italians, who are wounded by war. For them it's difficult to understand how like these things are happening in 21st century. So the main topic, as I said, it was how we as bishops, as church, we can help to heal the wounds, the wounded people for cause of the war. Yes, it's not easy just to heal during one day or week. It will be like for few decades, because this war, it's incredible war. From Ukrainian side, we have a lot of wounded people, but also we can say that from Russian side, they also will be wounded, or they are wounded for reason of the war. So the main this topic, it will be not only for this year and will be for next years, because you see it's difficult to predict what will be the end of this war. But we as pastors of our people around the world, and especially in Ukraine, we must think, we must look forward, and also to answer for these questions which are really important in this situation of the war.
Yeah.
Okay, now over to you, Bishop Bryan, about the concerns that you oversee when meeting with Pope and among bishops, discussions that are going on. What are the main concerns that you feel should be addressed to, or should come
Our
to the
synod
floor?
has, as Bishop Bychok mentioned, focused on healing wounds. And we've had a lot of professionals and various groups, not only church groups, but organizations that have helped us understand some of the details of mental wounds, psychological wounds, spiritual wounds. As I was listening to all of this, I often referred to, and I went back to put it in context for myself, a very important document by Pope John II, John Paul II, Saint John Paul II. He wrote, I believe, in 1984, a very powerful document called Salvifici Doloris, on human suffering. And there he explained many dimensions about human suffering, that we were never promised a life without suffering. Every person goes through this. This is the way of our life, a Christian life. And yet, I think the profound thing is, you're always going to be with Christ in the suffering. Christ is always with you. That's manifested in family, and that's why one of our topics coming up will be to focus on how the family can actually heal wounds. It's in that context that we will discover the many dimensions of being with Christ, how Christ is with us. And this dimension is what profoundly heals the heart, heals the soul. So we were able to share some of those dimensions with very specific stories to the Holy Father. We had that wonderful opportunity. We learned just a day or two before we met with him, that he extended our prepared meeting. He extended it an hour extra early so that we could come and be able to relate some of the details. He was a great listener. He listened to us, and I think again there he demonstrates for me that's how you heal. be a listener, be present to the person. He does many of these things very well. And so we're grateful for that opportunity that he was able to hear us, and we were able to know that he knows what's in our hearts, to know that he knows what's in our hearts.
We remember that last year in November 2022, that two of our confreres, Father Ivan and Father Bodan, they are captured by the Russian troops, and we have not heard about them and all that. And it is really sad situation. We want them to be free and continue to the ministry, but it is a really time that we really want them back our home and continue their ministry. So this is a moment of challenge of our faith and our witness as a Redemptorist and all. So how do you see this situation?
So you see, the main reason that they were captured, it was that they were with people until the end. At the beginning, few days after the full-scale invasion to Ukraine, so city of Berdyansk was in occupation, I think, 3 or 4 days after official invasion. During this day by day, they were with people, especially on the center location of the city. They were praying for peace in Ukraine. And maybe this was the one reason that they were under eyes of Russian troops. And a little bit late, Roman Catholic priest left Roman Catholic Church. So for this reason, Bishop Paul from Zaporizhia asked our priests, Redemptorists, also to take care of the Roman Catholic Church. And you see what happened, that during this their ministering, when they were in Roman Catholic Church, on the tower bell was sniper, like two realities. They are praying, but on the same time he's killing people. So you see, they are real witnesses of for us today, because, for example, Father Ivan Levitsky, when 27th of new martyrs were proclaimed by Saint Pope John Paul II, and 4 of them were Redemptorists. He was in this process of preparation for beatification, so he got news like from books about our 2 bishops martyrs and also 2 our fathers Redemptorist martyrs. Also Father Bogdan Heleta, who was in Siberia as a priest until 2014, when Crimean Peninsula was occupied by Russians. For this reason, he was expelled from Russia, from Siberia, just only for one reason, that he said Crimea is Ukraine, is not Russia. And right now you see almost 10 months they are in captivity. So we don't have any news about them, how they feel, where they are. But as Redemptorists, as bishops, especially during this meeting with Pope, he got special presents. It was their prayer book, rosary and missionary cross. It was really meaningful present for Pope to remember about these 2 our priests, Redemptorists, who are in captivity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a wonderful witness of faith and the solidarity with the people of Ukrainian Church.
Yeah.
So finally, Father Bryan, today you had a wonderful Mass with the Catholics gathered at St. Peter's Basilica.
Yes.
And how do you see today's reflection? Could you share something?
Well, personally for me, I remember coming as a bishop my first year, and we prayed there underneath Benini's Gloria. And here I am 15 years later with a very different church, but still strengthened in many beautiful experiences. To see the people there, to see the fullness of our synod, and to have Cardinal Leonardo Cardinal Sandri there, who for the last 15, 16 years, I think, was the head of the dicastery for Eastern churches, and certainly brought regards to us and the people on behalf of the Holy Father. It was a glorious celebration. Of course, it was also marking the 400th anniversary of the death of Saint Josaphat, who was martyred, for unity in the church. And so, all in all, it was a wonderful celebration to be there, gathered with many people from Italy here, from all our bishops from around the world, and many of the migrants that have come from Ukraine and elsewhere too. It was a wonderful day.
Wonderful to have you, Bishops Bryan and Michaela. And maybe what would be the last takeaway or giving your sharing of the last word would be?
Well, I think everyone is called to heal each other.
Yeah.
Healing is part of being Christian. It's the answer to our Christian vocation. Clearly, in Ukraine, there is a great need for healing. But when I look at other parts of the world, in India, in the Middle East, there's still so much healing that needs to take place. Sometimes it's with family members, sometimes it's with friends, sometimes it's a call, and that trickles down to every individual person. You've got a grandparent that may be lonely, you've got children that need to be visited or taken care of. Loneliness is a very severe, attack against that profound love that the Holy Father, Spirit, and Son have together as Trinity. We participate in it, we receive it. It's manifested very profoundly in the war, but healing needs to take place in our families, in our own relationships, and it boils down to me or you in prayer, ready to say, I'm sorry, ready to say, I should have did this, or I could have said that, or I could have been there, and I didn't. And so that's what I take home from this. Healing's so important, and I need to know and reflect on what I can do better to be part of the healing process for others.
Yeah. Similarly, Bishop Michaela, last word.
Yeah, I think Ukrainians understand what does it mean to have peace. So please value each second, each minute, each hour, each day, because it's a huge present which was granted by God. May God bless you.
So thank you very much, Bishop Bryan and Bishop Michaela, for being with us at this moment, taking time out and being with us and sharing your thoughts and reflections about the synod that you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.